Good afternoon. I'm Scott Mulwee. I'm Vice Chair of the Burke County Commissioners, and I'm here for another item of Fireside Chats. And I'm here with my County Manager, Mr. Brian Epley. The last two Fireside Chats, we did a timely discussion on jobs, really, in the Great Meadows, people calling it mega site. We touched on that, but we really touched on how important jobs are to our tax base. And then the last series we talked about school funding, and that was interesting, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but we had some very good news there, school funding and police funding versus tax rate. And so today's subject is tax rate and tax burden, and we're going to touch on reval as well. So these are three topics that people get quite excited about, and obviously are one of the most important things we do as county commissioner is set the tax rate. And one of the most unfortunate things we have to do is go through a reval. And last year it was dictated by the state that we had to do a reevaluation. And so I've been through several of those now, and this one was timely, but we will see through the numbers how the commissioners as a whole decided to take some of that burden off the taxpayers by lowering the tax rate. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Epley, and let you show us the analysis.
Thank you so much. I do think this is another important discussion, and it's a further attempt to communicate priorities. And as Commissioner Mulwee said, the tax rate is something that's done annually, but it's a huge responsibility because it is property tax revenue is 55% of our budget, so it funds a lot of critically important policy areas. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're balancing output with what we're asking our citizens to pay. And that's where I'd like to start is just by highlighting, Burke County is intentionally focused in a very precision way on achieving high performance. And part of that is we want to be outcome and data driven. We want to make sure that what we're delivering to our community is what's needed, that it's based on data-driven decisions, and that we can measure our performance. We know that taxation is not something that anyone gets excited about. What we want to focus on is delivering value that exceeds the price, and we try to focus on that. As a matter of fact, as we move through reval over the last 12 months, it was January the 1st of 2023 was the measurement period, and we'll talk more about that moving forward. But we were excited that we were able to reduce our tax rate by about 20% from 69.5 cents to 56 cents. That took us from the 58th lowest tax rate in North Carolina to the 28th. So we were able to leapfrog about 30 other counties in our tax rate reduction. And ultimately, what we're focused on is continuing to manage our spend. And this is just a quick optic that shows that our budget, when we compare it to other local governments in North Carolina, has consistently been less. And by spending less, we've been able to maintain really a highly competitive tax rate. Because what we're trying to accomplish, again, is maintaining this value for a fair and equitable price. And so when you look at a list of county services, many of which are required by statutory requirements, and some that are optional based on community needs, we can compute and communicate what you're getting for what you're paying. And when you look at the services that we offer, the way that this optic would read, for example, 911 communications at the top, which is a statutorily required service of the community, and we answer all 911 calls for all services in Burke County, and each person in Burke County pays about $23 per year for that. That's about $1.90 per month for what it's worth, and that funds 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365 days a year assurance that if you need emergency services and you call 911, somebody's going to answer within 2 seconds and dispatch the appropriate emergency service that you need, and then stay on the line with you and coach you through whatever emergency you may be going through, and so forth and so on for the other services and costs there. And when you tally all of those services up, it adds to about $622 per year per person. We mentioned this concept of revaluation, which is again a statutory process that has to happen. It's regulated by the North Carolina Department of Revenue. And the goal is to align tax values. So each piece of property in Burke County has an assigned tax value. And those values only change during these revaluation periods, which typically happen every 4 to 5, 6 years. And the goal is to, recognizing tax values are static and do not change, but market values are fluid, and market being determined as the price estimated in terms of money at which an arm's length transaction would happen. So if someone wants to sell property and someone wants to buy property and it's arm's length, meaning they're not related or they're not inheritance or something like that, what would the sum of money be to make that property change hands? That's what market value is. That's fluidly changing in real time. Tax value only changed on a periodic basis. So this revaluation is a reconciliation of the two to accomplish those two being the same number. Over time, again, that market value changes, tax value doesn't, and you get this gap. And the law requires when you're more than 15% out of market, you have to do a revaluation, and we were about 40% out of market. So to stay in compliance with that Department of Revenue law, we did a revaluation. It wasn't unique to us. This has been really happening all over the region. Here you can see other peer surrounding counties that have had the same market trends happening. But what I draw your attention to is most importantly is the tax bill, right? So when we say tax levy or tax burden, that's the amount of money that somebody has to pay in property taxes, either through their mortgage as a part of an escrow or come actually to the county office and pay their tax bill. And so as property value goes up and down, so can the tax rate. The bill that you pay is a function of an equation with two variables. One is the property value. So this past year, when we saw property values go up, it really presented the Board of Commissioners an opportunity to evaluate the tax rate. And by lowering the tax rate, even though the value went up, for the most part, they were able to offset that in tax bills not increase proportionally the same way. And that's what we're trying to demonstrate here. So in this chart, what I've done is shown post-revaluation and our pre-revaluation and post-revaluation for all the taxing authorities in Burke County. And so on this graph, the blue bar represents for each of our taxing authorities, and that again would be towns, cities, and fire departments. What percentage did their tax rate decrease during revaluation? So as the property values went up, the blue bar would indicate how much they proportionally reduced their tax rate. And you can see Burke County on the far left there at about 20%. And what I would say is, fortunately, because of what I consider good budget management and an eagerness of the county commissioners to keep taxes as low as possible, the county was able to reduce the tax rate more so than any other taxing entity in the county. So a lot of people, about 50% of our community lives in a municipal area or has a volunteer fire district that serves and protects their home, and we're grateful for that. But a lot of those are consolidated on the tax bill. So sometimes that's a hard area to really create any dichotomy and separation because you just see how much I owe in total. But I think it's important to recognize where the taxing bill is coming from. So for example, if you live in a municipality, you may get, you would certainly have a county property tax bill and then a city or town property tax bill, and it's possible to also have a volunteer fire tax bill. And you've got to understand the difference between each of those and what changed and didn't change. The second data point on this optic, the orange bar, is the net change in levy. So on the blue one, the higher the blue mark, the more the property tax rate was decreased. For the orange, the lower the orange bar, the lower the tax revenue was projected to grow. And that would be a component of rate and natural growth. But here you can see again, county government and the county commissioners took a responsible approach and was far less growth than most of our other areas proportionally. So what that equated to when all the dust has settled is our taxing burden. And taxing burden is, again, how much do you have to pay? What is your taxing bill? So pre-revaluation last year, Burke County had the 83rd lowest taxing burden. So again, that's saying out of all 100 counties, Burke County government required taxpayers to pay on average the 83rd lowest amount, meaning only about 16 counties in North Carolina have a lower taxing amount on average than Burke County government, and it was $599 per year. Post reval, that grew from $599 to $623. $622. That's about a $23 per year increase, or about $1.90 per month. So what that's telling us is revaluation at a county taxing level imposed by the county's property tax rate grew by about $1.90 per month. And again, I'll leave you with this as a reminder. It's something we're very proud of. The reduction in the tax rate by 20% landed Burke County at the 28th lowest taxing rate in North Carolina. We're highlighting this policy area because it's such an important part of what we do, and it's such an important part of the community. And the Board of Commissioners, really take that fiduciary responsibility very seriously, and we want to make sure that we're doing a good job of communicating our outcomes, pursuing high performance in local government, making sure that we're meeting community needs. Commissioner, I'll turn it back over to you, but I hope that this answered some questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I think it's pretty straightforward. I appreciate the information. I will say I'm proud once again of what the staff has done and allowed us as commissioners to be able to deliver. Last year, I'm married to a realtor, so I know firsthand how much some of the property values went up, and mine included, and it is responsible for us not to put that burden on the taxpayers. So as you can see, and I'm proud of the fact of that tax burden, we still remain 83rd in North Carolina. So only, like you said, 16 counties have less of a tax burden than us. But you look at our deliverables, and water, sewer, you name it. When you come to a county office and you need help, whatever branch it is, and we've got 28 departments. Yep. All are run highly efficient, and our deliverables are up, but our county taxes are down. Just in the last fiscal year, and you and I talked about this earlier, extremely proud of the fact that the commissioners passed a responsible budget, cutting taxes right at 20%, but increasing public education funding by 25.7%, and also as far as the Sheriff's Department and emergency services, we increased that budget 12.7%, and so emergency personnel got a large bump, and so I'm very proud of that fact. And so as we move forward, our job is to not cut taxes to the bone where we can't deliver excellent service, which we are, but to balance the budget, balance the tax rate with high degree of service to our constituents, which are 90,000 clients. I look at them as clients. Do you not?
Yes, sir.
So you've got 90,000 people living in this county, and our job is to be effective with your taxpayers' money, and prudent, and be highly efficient with our deliverables. And I think that's something that we have done. We've improved upon tremendously, but we recognize we have more work to do. I know right now we're taking and I'm kind of veering off, and I'm going to kind of blindside you with this, but the sewer and water, that's been something that we've been looking at for decades to try to improve that situation. Touch briefly on the SWIA analysis that we're doing.
Yeah, so we're currently, we've applied for and received a grant from the state of North Carolina for $500,000. To fund an asset inventory analysis. So we're contracting with an engineering firm called Willis Engineering to really provide a comprehensive overview of all of the water sewer inventory and assets that we have. So that's lines and what the diameter is, what the flow is, pump stations, change valves, force mains, all of the components. And the question and the policy area for the Board of Commissioners is, how can we expand service to needed areas in the community? The reality is that is incredibly expensive. You're talking $150 to $200 per linear foot. So when you're running miles and miles of this infrastructure, you can see how that is incredibly cost prohibitive, and that's why it's been stagnant for some time. But there's a need. The commissioners have heard that need, and before we can start, executing, we first have to go through this planning and development strategy, component. That's what we're working on now, and we're optimistic about what the future of water sewer expansion in Burke County may look like.
Well, thank you. I wanted to touch base on that because when we recognize we're only as good as the information we receive as commissioners, and so these studies are ultra important for us to make decisions and be effective and efficient moving forward. And we continue to do that in all aspects of government. We're looking at solid waste and some other areas as well, there where we can improve upon deliverables and cost. And so I just want you to know, as commissioner, we take this responsibility very seriously to spend your money wisely, and I hope you feel that we're doing so. And I appreciate the timely topic and the information from Mr. Epley today, and I would ask you to reach out to the county if you have any specific topics you would like for us to touch base with on Fireside Chats. We welcome any comments. So we appreciate your patience today, and I hope you found this information to be interesting and good information for you. And like I said, reach out to us with any questions you have as commissioners or staff. Thanks again for joining us on Fireside Chats, and we'll see you next time.